Good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Secrets in Medical Devices. We are so happy you are here tonight with us, and we have a special guest with us, don't we, Cindy?
Yes, we do. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for listening. I am very excited to have our guest with us this evening, and I'm going to let Lisa give the introductions.
Yeah, so John Lynch and I have known each other for 15, 16 years, something like that. And John Lynch is a very special person to me because not only is a mentor of mine, but he came into my life at a place where I was working in a company and was looking to take the next leap, to really get into a specialty selling devices that I really wanted to do. And I was told by a number of folks that maybe it wasn't a good fit for me. I wasn't quite ready in my career to take that leap, but I knew inside that I could do this job. And John took the gamble on me and told me, I remember when you sat down with me, John, and said, Lisa, I believe in you. You can do this and you're going to get this position and I'm going to be right there behind you to support you. So that obviously took me to places that I never believed that I could go. And I have you to thank for that, John. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I can't wait to hear all about what you're going to tell us.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you both, Lisa and Cindy. It's a great honor to be here. I am really excited to spend some time with you and just share anything about my experiences that hopefully some of your listeners would find valuable. But that's great. I love the program. I love what y'all are doing. So
Thank you. John, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your background first, kind of your story, and then we'll dive into some of these questions that I know our listeners are dying to ask.
Sure. So I will give you the Reader's Digest version because I've been at it a lot longer than you two young ladies, but I have been in healthcare for probably 30 plus years all told. Started my career way back coming out of college for Siemens Medical Systems. This is when I lived up in New Jersey. And then after about 3 years, moved over to Johnson & Johnson. And along that early, I guess, path, one of the things that I was able to be exposed to a lot of different disciplines within an organization. And one that I found really interesting and just really like a great fit was the sales area. And so that's really what led me to leave Siemens to go to Johnson & Johnson to pursue a sales position. And that's where I started my sales career and had a wonderful ride with those two companies. Interestingly, I made a decision to leave in the mid 90s to go pursue a software sales profession in the high tech world and did that for about 10 years. I worked for some big software companies, Oracle and PeopleSoft. I worked for a few startups. It was a really dynamic time to be in that industry. It was the late 90s, early 2000s. So this thing called the internet was just emerging. And so a really wild experience, great experience, but made a decision early 2004 to come back into healthcare. And at the same time, my family and I made a decision to move down to Florida. And so we left New Jersey and settled in Sarasota, Florida, and started a career back in the healthcare industry with Datascope selling capital equipment. And then from there, took the leap into med device, went to Medtronic for a better part of 9, 10 years, made a switch about 5, 6 years ago and did a stint in orthopedics with Zimmer Biomet. And then about 3 years ago, came back to the cardiovascular world with Abbott, where I'm at today. So I would tell you what a wonderful journey it's been. I've had honor of working for some great companies. I've had successes and just a great diverse background of selling pharmaceuticals, capital equipment, software, you name it. I've carried the bag. I've managed people. I've done corporate sales, national accounts, enterprise accounts. So a real diverse background. But I would tell you the thing that sticks to me the most is the people that I've met along that journey. And I've been blessed. I cannot tell you the quality of people, the number of people that I've met and had the good fortune of working with over those years is just something that I always cherish. The enduring friendships that I have with people that I've known since Siemens and J&J that are still thriving today. So it's been a great ride. I've been very blessed and very fortunate.
That's great. All those different companies. And you said that you had gone into sales and that you love people. And I can see how that really intertwines. So I want to just kind of ask a little bit about focusing on the sales aspect. So something that struck me very interesting in your background was how you were in healthcare and then you took a 10-year hiatus in looking at data. What did you just say it was again? It was
Just high tech
it's
software
high tech,
sales.
right? I was like,
Yeah,
what's
that's
so
okay.
technical? And then back into medical device or into the healthcare whole arena. What did you find different between those two industries when it came to people? So like if you're interviewing candidates, what's different, what's separate? Because I thought that very interesting.
Yeah, great question, Cindy. So I would tell you there's a few things. I think the type of sale in software was much different. It was much more a solution sale because if you think about software, it's really that black box that you can't really touch or feel or see. And so the selling process was completely different. I think a lot longer, a lot more complex. So I can't necessarily say in terms of people, there was a big difference, but certainly the environment and selling was much different. The people, I think, were probably a little bit more tech focused. Some of them came from software backgrounds and software engineering and people that wrote code that were real technical, that had great technical skills. But I met a lot of talented people that I learned from a lot during those years. And again, I think what it taught me that I kind of took with me in the future was just the ability to look at a sales process a little bit more holistically, a little bit more thinking about some other things that I might not have been aware of had I not had that experience, other stakeholders that I probably wouldn't have thought about if I wasn't exposed to that kind of complex sale. So that was probably the biggest difference, but wonderful people. I can't say anything one way or the other. I think just a little bit different focus in terms of the types of people that I've dealt with and met with in healthcare.
You know what that reminds me of is AI. I mean, to me, software, like you just said, the big black box, right? You can't really touch it, you can't really feel it. You know it's going to work, but you're not 100% sure how it works. I
Exactly.
feel like that's just like AI. And here we are in 2024, and AI is absolutely making a push in the med tech space. And I think, John, man, you might have your next calling because I mean, if you already understand the verbiage, right, you could dialogue with those folks. That's amazing. I think that there's so many opportunities in the medical device arena, and AI for sure is making a big push now, I feel like.
It's amazing, Lisa and Cindy. I think where AI is today, and then if you think about 5, 10 years from now, what it's going to impact and what it's going to look like, it's surreal. It's kind of like the Jetsons, right? When I was
Yeah.
a kid, the Jetsons
Yeah.
and their cartoons. But yeah, there's a lot of great promise with AI, and it'll be exciting to see all the different applications across all the different areas of healthcare. I think it's just got a lot of universal appeal and universal usage. So yeah, we'll
Absolutely.
see.
All right. So switching gears, you mentioned, and I know you were my manager, and I know you as a person, and I know how you manage, which is a wonderful way to manage. But I'd love for you to tell our listeners when you're looking for a candidate and you're looking to hire someone, or in my situation, I was already hired, but you moved me to a much higher level position. What are you looking for in those candidates? What are some of those qualities that stand out, or what are the things that matter most to you that you know will not only be a team player, but will really drive sales for the company? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, great question. I think the first thing I would say is that I'm a believer, always have been a believer, that people are the most important asset that a company has. I think I've worked and been exposed to a lot of situations, a lot of companies that have had great products. And I've also worked with a lot of great people. And if you asked me which one I would choose people. And I've seen it time and time again where if you have an A team of people, even with a B product, you're going to win. First and foremost, people are, to me, the most important thing, whether it's as a manager, just as a coworker. The things that I look for, Lisa, I think character is really, really important. It's just, again, the way I live my life, I think those types of things, both personally and professionally, good character, people that are true to their word, people that are professional, that know how to handle themselves, people that follow through. All those things that when you think about character, it's kind of this all encompassing. But I think character is probably one of the biggest things for me. I always like to understand the personal side of somebody. Like, again, what are they doing professionally? What path and why did they choose that? Personally, what they're doing with their lives, whether it's with families or just interests and hobbies. So really understanding what that person is about, what motivates them, what their passion is. I think those are some key things. Obviously, having work ethic, it's something that I think everyone just kind of takes for granted, like, you check the box, everyone works hard. And I think a lot of people do, but there's differences out there. And there's people that will go above and beyond when needed. And I think those are important. I think being able to be a part of a team, especially today, as our world is going to continue to change and you're going to have to be able to deal with diversity of people, diversity of thought. I think having people that can really thrive in a team environment. Again, that's the role that you're looking for. And sales to me, as much as it's about the individual and your quota, it's also about the team, right? And I think having people that can do well and really bring out the best in themselves, but also bring out the best in the team, I think are important things. Those are probably some of the top things.
I love that character was one of the first things, as we've had many discussions over this past year about what makes people stand out, and character being number one. And that's something that we've also really tried to remind people is to always be themselves and be authentically them. So this brings me to my question. The second thing you mentioned was work ethic. So let's say you're interviewing a candidate and somebody, I think work ethic kind of comes up in conversations or whether they're asked, and somebody may say they have a good work ethic, but I want to ask you, how do you, not knowing a person, how are you able to see that? Or can you give us an example of a way somebody can describe their work ethic that truly defines a definition where maybe all of us agree on what work ethic is and somebody out there may see it differently?
Yeah, and that is a great question, Cindy. And it's always one of the challenges when you're interviewing people to really know what the truth is, right? And I think just asking people, like I like to get into a lot of their, tell me about your success. How did that come about? What did you do? And whether it's a specific deal that they closed or had a great year one year and they achieved or exceeded plan. I kind of drill into some of those things about how did that happen? I talk about failures and want to know about their failures. And then how did they grow from that? What they learn from that? Specific to work ethic, I just always ask, what's a typical day look like? What's a typical week look like? Maybe give them a situation that it's Friday night at 4:30 and you get a call from your colleague that's 3 towns away that needs product for a case on Monday. How you handle it. And again, there's no perfect silver bullet that you can always get to the core of that. But I think just asking and learning more about the individual and kind of, like I said, some of their personal things, what drives them, what makes them, how they dealt with adversity. Sometimes that can help you get a good sense on the work ethic.
Yeah, no, those are great. That's a great point. And what I'm thinking about as you're talking is medical devices is such a specific and unique industry. I mean, it's so different than even probably software or working at, and I always say this, Lululemon or, one of these other places. It's just so specific. And I think one of those things is it's really an individual job. I mean, yes, we talk about teams and working on a team, but you really are in charge of your own schedule, your own hours to a certain degree, along with cases. But I think one of the big things that reps sometimes struggle with is how to manage their territory and how to understand these problems that they have, these hurdles that they hit, and I just can't seem to get it. What advice would you give to reps out there when they just have those days or weeks where they're just like, nothing is clicking, John? I cannot get Dr. So-and-so to buy this product. I can't hit my number. This is bad. And then they go down the train of, I don't think I can do this job anymore. Maybe I should look for a different job. I mean, I'm sure you've had those situations arise. How do you handle that as a manager, but also as a leader and a mentor? What would you tell those folks out there?
Yeah. So a couple of things. Number one, I think anybody that comes into a sales profession has to understand that a big part of this job is dealing with rejection, dealing with no. I mean, I don't care what you're selling. You're going to probably run into, I don't know what the right statistic is. I can remember when I was trying to get my first sales job, I interviewed probably with 30 different companies and even some divisions within Johnson & Johnson. And it was just, no, you don't have sales experience. Okay, well, how do you get sales experience, right? So I'm a firm believer that people that want to pursue sales, they need to be level set and then have a realistic kind of view as far as what it is and its rejection and how you deal with that rejection, how you overcome that and figure out a way. So that's the first thing. I think as it relates to med device, I tell people all the time, especially if they're new coming in, it's a lifestyle. And it's kind of one of those things that we're all out there trying to find the right balance between work and your personal life, and it's hard. But the demands for a med device sales professional and sales team, it's very demanding. And it's one of those things that unfortunately you don't get to turn it on and off. It's there 24/7. Again, try and really emphasize that to people going in, that if you want to have a nice, normal, predictable Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 or whatever, this isn't the place for you. It's just not. And that's okay. It's not for everybody. In terms of the repeated rejection and how do I get through this? And there's a few things that I've learned over my life and my career that I think the persistence and the professional persistence and just being able, because look, there's a lot of times that people will put up roadblocks just to see how you react, to see how much passion you have, how much belief you have in yourself and your product. It's almost a test, right? And some tests, they take you through a full semester or full year of those rejections to finally get through. But I think professional persistence and maintaining a touch with that individual, looking for creative ways that if you haven't been able to get through, maybe you try a direct route or indirect route or somebody that they know or one of their colleagues or mentors that you can tap into, looking for other people. One of the great things of working for companies like Abbott and Medtronic, and we've got so many resources across our organizations that if I'm having a difficult time getting in to meet a doctor, but yet someone in another division's got a great relationship, well, I'm going to try and attack at that avenue. So I always tell people, like, keep going, right? Tough times don't last forever. Tough people do. Just stay persistent, stay professional, stay passionate about it. Look for any little thing that you can kind of wedge yourself into, whether it's a different relationship or a different angle. It's just a lot of persistence and resilience.
Value
I love
bombs.
it.
Value bombs,
Right.
baby.
I was just going to say, not to mention the girls of grit when it comes to persistence, we're all for it. But you said it, the 3 Ps: persistent, professional, and passionate. I mean, that's it. And clearly you did say you pretty much had like 30 applications or 30 interviews before you got your first job. So it's something ingrained in you as well.
True story. Yeah. And again, everyone's got their own engine or motivator or whatever drives them. I'm a sports guy. I've played sports my whole life. I love competition. And I probably learned more about myself from the failures that I've had than the successes that I've had. And I think that's always what drives me is like, if I have a great year, right, and exceed quota and I've won president's clubs, and the ones that always stick to me are the ones I lost, or the ones that I'm like, what could I have done better? And so I think if you have that mentality that you're just going to keep driving through and find a way, good things happen to people that stay with it. I'm a firm believer of that.
And
I
I
love
love our
that.
listeners to hear that, because what you just said is so much of what we live, where there's a failure and you're like, oh, what could I have done better? And then, like you just said, good things come. But, if you just want to reiterate to the listeners, you don't have to give a specific example, but I think it's so important. You just really said something that needs to be repeated. And that is, you're going to fail, you're going to fall forward. It's all part of a process. But just that if you stick with it, of those failures, even after winning President's Club, was there one that you were then able to tackle that you didn't at first?
Yeah, there's a number of, let me try and figure out which
Oh,
one.
that's good.
Because there's certainly been, I've had my share. I can go back to software because, again, coming into software, I was so, I guess, naive to the process. I just felt like, hey, I'm going to show up and I'm going to figure out what this customer wants, and I'm going to be able to get through it and get this deal done. And I learned really quickly. I was very humbled about how much I didn't know, and going through some really tough sales cycles that seemed to drag on forever, seemed to go nowhere, and just ultimately didn't get me where I wanted to go. You kind of take a step back. And I was lucky to have a lot of people around me that were mentors and people that had software experience and kind of opened my eyes to what the sales process was. So for me, it was a great learning experience about, just because you think you're all that in a bag of chips, you're not. And you have to be really take each step. There's no shortcuts. So again, I went from probably struggling the first 6 months to 9 months, which I had never done that in my sales career. I had always had success and had already won a couple of President's Clubs at that point. So it hurt the ego. It was a real painful lesson. But when I look back on it, Cindy, I'm so glad that I went through it because it made me better. It made me more resilient. It made me think about things that I had never thought about before in ways that I had never really even imagined. And so I give that example as just one in my career that I could have sat and pouted in the corner and licked my wounds. But I think if you're willing to accept and then look for ways that you can improve and grow and develop, you can take those difficult, challenging situations and really turn them into, again, things that will stay with you in a positive way for the rest of your career.
That's a great way to say it. I mean, I can't think of a better example than medical devices being humbling, or for that matter, sales in general. Because you're right, John. Right when you think you've got it all, man, you get brought back down again. It's like that little reminder of, guess what? You're still just human. And it is true. And I think that's the resilience. That's the professionalism, the persistency, and the passion for what you do. And I think obviously it comes through in you because you can see it. And at the end of the day, I think we really are all here just because of the products and the patients, obviously, but the people as well. And the experiences, the life experiences that it teaches us. And Cindy and I get a lot of questions of, why do you do medical devices? Why is medical devices so awesome? Why does everybody want to jump into it? And it's multifaceted and it changes, I think, for everyone, depending on your goals. But you look at any one of those facets and it all checks the boxes on every single one of those. And I think at the end of the day, that's why we continue to do what we do. And nobody said it was easy, but
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
continue
And
down that road.
I'll give you my own 2 cents on it because, again, I've been blessed. I've had a great career. I've worked for great organizations, like I've told you, great people along the way. The thing that I always come back to with healthcare and specifically med device, that you can call it my why, you can call it my passion, but I'm still in awe, first off, that there's people that are brilliant enough to design these devices. And then thankfully, there's talented physicians that know how to get them and implant them in the body and really make a difference in people's lives. And I know that sounds corny and all that stuff, but I will tell you some of the most rewarding moments of my medical device career will be meeting people, sometimes total strangers, that come up to you and say, oh my gosh, you work for Medtronic or you work for Abbott. So-and-so has a device or so-and-so did this. And I mean, that to me is as good as it can get in terms of representing a company and representing products that have an impact in people's lives that really change. I'll never forget one of the first, I was actually interviewing with Medtronic, and I happened to be up there towards the holidays, and they have this tradition that they bring in patients to talk to the entire company. And so I happened to be walking through the cafeteria and was listening to this, and it was so moving and so incredibly inspiring. That's always in my mind and kind of in my heart what drives me and what I think med device at its core is all about.
I love that you said that because I even feel your passion for that when you talk about impacting patients, and something that we know every day. There's a patient at the end of the table that we are ultimately trying to help. And yes, it's hard. There's a lot of no's, there's a lot of rejection, there's a lot of frustration. And then, like you just said, nothing good comes easy. But when you get that something good, and that impact that you make, it's just such a tremendous feeling that I think you just really kind of uncovered a little secret in medical device, that it's a feeling that those of us who get to experience it actually are more privileged than anything else. Hard work or not, it's a true privilege to be part of something like that.
Oh, absolutely. I think if you can touch one person's life in your career that you make, whether it's directly or just working for a company or supporting a case that makes an impact on someone's life, I just think that is just so profound. And so many people will never get to experience that. So I think we're blessed and very fortunate to work in this. The other part about the med device that just, again, I'm in awe of is just the advance of technologies. I'll use a TAVR device. Before TAVR, it was an open procedure and long post-op recoveries. Now it's done in an hour. It's just incredible to see. Lisa, the AAA stents before they came into the market. So the innovation in the minds and the brain power that bring these things to market, they're incredible.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Sometimes you forget that when you're in the heat of the battle and you're struggling with something or you can't seem to get over this hurdle. You forget why you started in the beginning of all this. And you just brought it home, John. And you reminded me of, I remember those days with Medtronic too and Earl Bakken. I mean, it was like, it was such a big deal to have those patient days. And when you hear their stories or somebody stops you in the hallway, they see your Medtronic sign or Terumo or whoever you're working for, J&J, and they have a product of yours either in them or their child, for example, Medtronic and diabetes and the mini med, when you're stopped in the hallway and somebody asks you, even if you can't answer them completely, what a feeling of worth that you get just by working for those companies. And I forget about that a lot, but that's such an intangible thing that you can't just explain that to somebody, but you just did a great job of it.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. So one of the other things that we wanted to ask you is, and you mentioned it briefly, but I think it's really important, is mentorship. And like I said in the beginning of this call, you are one of my mentors, and I called you recently for some advice. And I think Cindy and I talk a lot about mentorship and how important it is, especially in the medical device arena, to have those mentors. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on mentorship and what you think is important and who maybe some of your mentors are.
Yeah, again, feel blessed to have had some great mentors that I'm still very close with to this day throughout my career, Lisa and Cindy. Just great people. They've become great friends, but they were there to kind of give me perspective, guidance, encouragement, direction when I needed it. Sometimes just that I couldn't see things that they could objectively. So I'm a big, big believer in mentorship. I think it's so important with my children and a lot of the young friends that I've gotten to meet through them or just our family friends. I love mentoring young people. I'm helping a few of them right now. And it's just now it's a rewarding thing for me to kind of share my experiences and hopefully give them some guidance that my two mentors gave me. But yeah, it's so important. I think in med device, I think in any industry, in any profession, it's just really, really valuable to have someone that you can lean on, you can trust in, will give you just unvarnished truth. Sometimes the feedback that they gave me was pretty hard, but true. And so you need that as well. But yeah, huge, huge believer in mentorship.
Thank you
Perfect.
for that. That is something that I think some of us struggling out there, it's a moment to just pause and seek mentorship, which they may have mentors that they don't even realize they can go to and ask for help and have questions, but they lead the path. And I'm very glad that you're one of Lisa's mentors. I think that's phenomenal. And to have the mentorship, the sales experience that you have, and then to kind of roll into leadership. So I did want to just take a few minutes to ask your direction on when you wrap it all in one. I've really enjoyed listening to you talk about people and you're inspiring and competition and your sales process. So when all of this comes together for medical device and you in a leadership role, what does that look like for you? And I think most importantly, like, how would you describe leading a winning team?
Yeah, I'll try and narrow it down. I have
Big,
so
big
many.
question. Sorry.
Yeah,
Only a big
Take it
question.
small.
No, and it's a great topic to discuss. There's so many different angles to it, so many different experiences that we've all had with leaders. I think for me personally, I've had the fortune of working for some really, really great leaders. I've also worked for some people that were not good leaders, and I tried to learn from both sides, good and bad. And I think some of the things that I think about when either myself or when I look at strong leaders, I think just being genuine, being authentic, being fair and open-minded, I think are all important things. Kind of the servient mentality. I have a team of 7 that I work with today, and I'm blessed to have them. They're fantastic. My thought is every day is getting up is what can I do to help them take care of patients, and whether that's removing a roadblock or getting them a resource or whatever it is. So I think the servient mentality, I think positive energy and passion, and especially when things aren't going well, right? I mean, everybody can be a great guy and gregarious and laughing when things are going well, but when things are going tough, that's when you learn a lot about people. And I think having that ability to keep people inspired, keep people positive and moving forward, as opposed to just getting dragged down into the negativity that we all can fall into. I think those are important things. It's just accountability, setting expectations, being fair and communicating. I think there's so many things that all go into it. I think at the end of it, what you're trying to create is a culture and an environment where people feel valued, people feel respected, they feel good about what they're doing day in, day out. And if I'm doing that on a daily basis, then I'm doing okay, because that leads itself. You do that well, and it takes care of all the other issues and all the other problems and challenges.
And that, my friends, is a manager you want to work for.
I'm in.
Seriously, John, you spoke from the heart, and you can really tell it and hear it and feel it. That's not only a person you want to work with, but you want to work for as well. And you nailed it right on the head. So thank you for that. I greatly appreciate that.
Absolutely. I've been very lucky to be part of a lot of good teams and good people, and it's been fun. And celebrate the wins. Too many people were always looking for, especially as a sales professional, you're always looking about the next month's quota and all, and that's important. But I think also taking time to celebrate and enjoy, kind of smell the roses, that's important too.
Right. Those little steps are what become those big steps. It's all the journey. It's pretty amazing. One thing Lisa and I always love to ask about is any type of great books, that your favorite book or a book that you've read recently, whether it's leadership, mentorship, sales, just anything you would recommend.
Yeah. So I guess from books, and I am not, in full transparency, not the best reader. I'd love to read, but I just never seem to stay disciplined enough to do it on a routine basis. But I'm a big believer in Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. I read that probably 25 years ago, and I still look at it from time to time just to kind of remember and remind myself of some of the principles that he lays out. Because for me, they made a lot of sense, and it just helped me, again, think through who I was as a person, who I was as a professional. He's got another book, I think it's Trust and Inspire. So I'm a big Stephen Covey guy. One of my managers at Medtronic gave us this book. It's called The Precious Present. And it's Spencer Johnson. And it's a short read. I would tell you, it's a great book from one standpoint, and it's to stay present. And how often myself, the wheels are always turning, and I'm always thinking about what else I have to be doing or could be doing. And having that ability to really stay in the present, I think it's such an awesome skill if you can do it and master it, because I think it's so important, whether it's your personal life, whether it's your professional life. So that book, for whatever reason, just always stuck to me, because it helped me kind of, again, maybe slow down and take a deep breath and really engage in what I was doing or who I was with at that particular point in time. So those are a couple things. I will tell you a great movie that I just saw recently is The Boys in the Boat.
Oh,
yes.
I read that
Highly
book.
I love that
recommend
book
so
and that
good.
movie. Yeah.
I haven't read the book,
Yes.
but the movie was off the charts. I
Yes.
love that. So those are, I guess, some of
Love
the,
it.
like I said, I have plenty of books that my kids and people have bought me over the years that I probably started reading and got partially the way through. But one of these days, I'll find time and find the focus again to start looking at them.
I love it. I'm going to have to pick up that precious present, because that's definitely something I struggle with, is staying within the present time. Always
That's
thinking about the
a
next thing.
recommendation.
It's a hard thing to do, especially in the
really
busy
is.
lives and busy worlds that we operate.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, John, this has been awesome, enlightening. I love your humility and your authenticity. It really resonates with everything that you've said tonight. And I cannot wait for this episode to air, because I think some of the things that you said are really good, important reminders for everyone out there. I really do.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you and just share some of my wonderful experiences. I've been extremely blessed, first professionally as well as personally. I've got wonderful family and a lot of friends, and just great experiences, great moments. It's been a great ride.
Well, I loved getting the opportunity to meet with you as well. And you certainly sound like it. And sounds like with all your passion, you've still got a lot more in you. So I think the people that you work with will be very pleased to still work with you. I think that sounds great. And I can't thank you enough for coming to speak with us and truly sharing your passion. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you.
Awesome.
This
Thank
was
you
awesome.
both.
All right. Have a
Y'all have a
great
great
day.
night. Stay well.
Thank
Can't wait
you.
to see all the wonderful things the girls have written. One last thing that I did want to key in on, I think Rob Williamson talked about it in his podcast with you recently, and I am a firm believer in this. I think for young women today, the medical device industry is a great place for a career. And I can look at that reflecting back 30 plus years in my experience and just seeing the evolution and a positive evolution of women and becoming leaders and being more embraced in this industry. I think it's wonderful. And I think I talked to a lot of these young ladies today about this industry. And I just think it's a great place today and for the future for young ladies. So I would highly encourage all of your listeners that are thinking about it or in it. It's a great, great environment. I think it's just going to continue to get better for women, which is an awesome thing.
John, thank you so much for saying that. I think that is so important. It's a great reminder. And yes, I mean, our listeners are both men and women, but man, we really are there for the women and we want them to understand that now's the time. There's no better time to get into medical devices than right now.
Yep, it's a great opportunity. I think the landscape and the embracing women and their just all the talent, and I go on and on and on, but it's wonderful to see over my years, and I just can't wait to see what the future holds. So
Thank you,
Thank
John.
you.
So
Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
you all have a great night.
You
You
too.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.